It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Thursday, June 6th, and so happy for you joining us. We are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have sermons in the sky, QNA Thursday word study, and of course commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. All right, everyone, how are you doing? It is Thursday. I am so happy we're getting towards the end of the week. Don't forget, it's not just today, but every single Thursday it is Q&A, so get those questions ready. Send it to me whenever you can. And if you haven't yet, leave a like and comment to build our community. Very happy for everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive, so let's get up and support each other each and every day. This week's Sunday message title is Realize the Meaning of Dream Revelations. All right, so I'm not sure if you guys can hear it, but I sound very, what's the word? I sound very nasally right now, and it's because I have two pieces of, I have two pieces of Kleenex up my nose because my nose is running like crazy, and you know what that means, guys? I'm a little bit sick right now. I've been sick for about 2.5 days, and it's slowly just getting like worse and worse, slowly. Well, actually, today's not as worse as yesterday. Yesterday was probably the peak. Nose is running like crazy. I went out to get some medicine at the pharmacy, and not even a major headache or anything like that, but just took my Tylenol, and I took some allergy medication so that my nose doesn't run too much, and it works pretty well too. So overall, it's okay, I'm guessing. But, you know, when you're feeling a little bit under the weather, you don't have as much strength. You feel a little bit sluggish. Like, usually you feel really sluggish and heavy and lightheaded. For me, I'm not quite at that point. So I don't think this is like a flu or anything like that. I think it's just a minor cold. That's what I think. So as funny as this sounds, I have a cold in Malaysia when the weather is 32 degrees every single day and super humid. But I do think it's probably because I'm always in these air-conditioned areas and stuff like that too. So I do understand that I'm not in my peak condition. Like even I had a YouTube live stream this morning too. It was really surprising, shocking to me that a lot of people joined, mainly because we were 15 minutes late, and it was crazy. We had some computer problems, and the computer problems and the rendering video and stuff like that. It didn't even finish until 9 minutes before it was going live, and that's why there was no There's usually like a screen that pops up on your notification that comes and says, oh my gosh, we have a live stream coming up. Nothing came up until like 9 p.m. or like 9:05 a.m. here, which is 5 minutes late. And it was brutal. It was not brutal, but it was just a little bit stressing. But I also had this anticipation that God would do some type of miracle. And it did happen. Like even though we're 15 minutes late, in the beginning, we're like, me and the tech person were talking. We're like, hey, how's this going to work? Well, it's not going to finish until, around 8:40, like 20 minutes before. And we're like, okay, that's enough time for this and this to happen. So we should be fine. And then all the rendering and stuff for the video didn't even finish until 9 minutes before. We're like, oh my gosh. And if you want to do like a live thing, you need to be 15 minutes early for it. We're like, what are we going to do with this? And then eventually, we were like, okay, let's do it at 9:15. So we planned it for 9:15, but we're like, how come the video's not going public? How come no one sees it yet? And we realized that it was still processing. And I looked at the processing time, which was like another 22 minutes. And we're like, oh my gosh, it's already like nine. We're already late. It's 9 something, and now we're going to be really late. Because we're thinking to ourselves, this is not going to be ready till 9:45, 10 a.m. So now we're like, oh my goodness. And then I was like, God, how is this going to work? And then all of a sudden, I flipped back to the screen and the processing was done. It said 22 minutes left. And then by that time, it was already done. I was like, what? It was like not even a minute later that it was done. And I was like, oh God, thank you so much that we're not going to be delayed even that much more. So I was thankful. I was grateful. And, these things come up in life. They do. Like me and the tech person, nothing we could do about it. Like even yesterday night, the night before the broadcast, we're doing some recordings and such. And we realized at that point the laptop was broken. We're trying to figure out how to do this and how to do that. We're like, oh my gosh, how do we do this? How do we do this? And I was just grateful that we could go early to try and figure out how to do these things. And if we didn't figure it out and we waited for like the live day, nothing would have come up. It would have been impossible. So very, very grateful and thankful to God that, the cool thing is we've been through so much stress over the last year that even when the tech person's like, oh my gosh, it's going to be so late, I'm like, my first feeling is, all right, nothing we can do about it. It's not your fault. What do we do? It's not like we can make it go faster. It's not like it was anyone's fault. And even if it was someone's fault, we all make mistakes every once in a while. And it's kind of interesting to see how our thoughts change after going through a very, very big ordeal. And it was kind of like, all right, well, let's see what happens. All right, it's not your fault. It's not your fault either. Let's just move forward, see what happens kind of thing. So it was just interesting to see a different type of reaction. And the live went really well. We went over the history of Christianity from the Old Testament. We did it in like 15 minutes. It was just really, really quick. But it's good for people who are trying to figure out or trying to understand what Christianity is, what is Christianity, these types of things. So I really, really enjoy these podcasts that I'm doing and stuff. So I hope you guys are enjoying the channel too. Make sure you share, send them to friends that might want to learn these types of things too. At the moment, I'm just checking out the statistics. Our channel right now is making in the last 4 weeks, we've had 134 new subscribers. Awesome. So 134 people. Imagine that in a church, in a month, in 4 weeks, you have 134 new people listening to the word. We would freak out like, oh my gosh, it's so amazing. And if you think about it, it's really amazing that we have 134 new subscribers in the last 4 weeks. So it's something that we can really be thankful and praise God for. And something that we can say, wow, God, you're doing some amazing stuff through internet ministry that if this was actually happening in a real church, we would be so thankful and grateful. So the numbers are pretty steady. They are slowly rising. And basically all we're waiting for is that one viral video to set off the channel. So please continue to pray for this channel to go really, really well. I know there's a lot of things that can happen, just like today. Laptops don't work, this doesn't work, that doesn't happen. It's no one's fault. No one made it happen. It's just kind of what happens to things that we buy. Things kind of don't work all of a sudden. And because of that, we're able to see that, oh, okay, so this is what happened here. That's no problem. That's okay kind of thing. So yeah, life has all these problems. They're going to throw things at us. We're going to lose money here. We're going to lose money there. But in the end, we have the most important part, which is our life here in this history, being saved and raptured. Like there's nothing greater than that. We have solved the greatest problem in life, and all we're dealing with now is just the minor problems. And that's something that we should all be thankful about. We're not dealing with the greatest problem that the world is facing. We have that settled. All we're dealing with is the stuff on the outside. Oh, here's some crazy news. So my brother's birthday was on the 4th, and I called him. I called him on the 4th. Well, I texted him, I messaged him, we're talking. He was in New York on vacation. And he said to me, by the way, I lost my job. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was a great job. He was making 6 figures. he has he has to pay bills for his car, for his own apartment. He's got a mortgage. He's got all these things to pay. And I'm like, what? You lost your job? I'm like, oh, dude, I'm so sorry. And then he says, it's okay. I start my new job next week. And I was like, thank God that you got a new job. I'm so thankful for that, right? And then he said, oh, by the way, my job, when they fired me, or they had to let him go, they gave him a severance package, which basically means that, he's been in the company for over 10 years, whatever it is, and he's been a valuable part of the company. And since they have to cut down to lay off someone, you can't just lay them off. You have to give them a severance package. Like you give them money and saying, hey, we're sorry, here's some money, and you can go now kind of thing, right? Guess how much money they gave him? They gave him a year's salary as severance pay. Tell me that's crazy. A year's salary. So he told me like, yeah, I got a year's salary. So I've been on vacation for the last 3 months and I start my new job next week. And I was like, wow. So he got paid 6 figures to leave, to leave his job. And now he's going to have another job next week, which means he's like basically getting paid double for the next 9 months, which is crazy. And then, because he had this new amount of money, guess what he did? He gifted my parents $10,000. And I was like, thank God. Thank you. I was so thankful to him. It was like he gifted my parents $10,000, and it's a $10,000 that's for their 50th anniversary this year. So this December, my parents had their 50th anniversary, and they wanted to take a trip to Korea. So my brother, from his severance package, just gifted my parents $10,000. It's almost like you just won the lottery or something like that. So the thing that I was thankful for, I was super thankful that God took care of my family. Like it's a traumatizing thing to lose your job and then not knowing what you're going to do next, but then realizing they just gave you a year's salary. He gave basically my dad, not my dad. Well, you could say kind of like Father God, right? But God gave, like, my brother lost his job, but God took care of him, gave him a year's salary, took 3 months off to go on vacation, and then he's going to get another job. And he even had enough money to gift my parents $10,000 for their 50th wedding anniversary. That is nuts, right? That is nuts. And I was just so grateful and thankful because, God's taking care of not just us. He's taking care of our families too. So, I'm just praying that, I hope that in the end, people will realize how much God is taking care of each and every one of us and our entire families too. So yeah, that's something that I'm super grateful and super thankful for. Now, there's a poll that came out, right? And this poll is about evangelism. And it talks about what is the hardest part of evangelism. And we have over 50 people that have done this vote so far, this poll. And so far, number one is the one that I thought it was going to be, was connecting them to the word, right? Is actually being able to connect people to the word has been the hardest part for people. The second hardest thing for people is they're not even sure what to say to people at all either. And this is why, you know what? I think if those two are the biggest things, and that's going to be 70% of the people are struggling with those two things, I think a script is going to be, like, doing a script segment is going to be very, very important. And I think we should do a script for today's Sermons in the Sky. Like, instead of Sermons in the Sky, Pastor Baker will do another sermon next week. But I think it's going to be good for us to go over a script instead. So let's do a script segment today where it's something that you guys can practice. And this is, like I told you guys when I was in Malaysia, that one time we evangelized, like we passed 6 people in 2 months. We had a script. We all had a script that we did together so that we can discern between second-generation Christians, and also we're able to, there's another script we use for Gentiles, but we definitely used one for second-generation Christians, and I'll use that one first. right? It's going to be the script I use for second generation Christians. And I'll do that at today's last segment, all right? And if you guys are interested in how to connect, how to bring people, how to connect people to the word, or how to discern them, I'll do that script for today. So I think that will be something that's going to be very, very beneficial for the 70% so far that have been struggling with that also. There's this one thing that I had this great conversation with a member, and we were talking about, leadership. Obviously, leadership is one of the big things that we talk about, and how we can make leadership better for the future. And, one caveat, one thing I do want to tell people is I have nothing against leadership right now. I don't. It's just that we're looking for the next level of leadership. Right? Leadership can only go as far as the system we have in place. And that's why leadership is going to go the way according to the system we have right now. And the better and better the more and more we grow, the more and more we upgrade the level of our system, the better our leaders can do, right? That's just obvious. If we have a great training program, if we have a school or a seminary, if we have any of these things, what's going to happen is, if we have this type of program, we will really, really be able to upgrade the level of leadership more and more, right? So that is something that I do think about. And it was just kind of a realization that I had. Because remember, I talked to you before about how leaders can, what's that? What was I saying? I said, for instance, if you take the average age of a CEO, the average age of a CEO in America is 57. They said the peak, when can people make peak financial decisions with enough wisdom and experience to make the best financial decision? They said it's 53 or 54. And you see that in the 50s is when people are making, better and better decisions. And it's basically the time where you've gone through your 20s to your 40s, and you've been able to go through tons of experiences, tons of mistakes, learn from your mistakes, learn new ways of doing things. And then by the time you hit your 50s, you're going to have everything kind of put together, and you realize, oh, I can do so much better here. You guys have heard me all the time. When, in the very beginning, even starting from 2 years ago, one thing I can admit, I wasn't a very good head leader. I don't think I was. There are some things I did really well. I was a good evangelist. I was a good lecturer. I was a good sermon deliverer. But there's so many things I was ill-equipped for as a head leader. One of the things, I told you guys before, is I didn't even know what a house visit was. I didn't even know what to do for a house visit. I was like, what is that for? I'm not even understanding why a house visit is necessary, what I need to do during the house visit. Counseling, I wasn't actually sure what I was supposed to do for a counseling. There's a lot of different things that I was ill prepared for. And I would even say dealing and counseling with females. There's so many things I didn't know about females that I'd be like, what? What's going on right now? And I would learn as I go. And these are things that I think would have been beneficial if I learned all these things earlier, if I knew exactly what the scope of a head leader was beforehand, and then trained in all those different areas. And I've told you guys before, I would say marriage counseling is one of the big things that pastors should go through, because you're going to be dealing with more and more couples. You just are. And if you're not, if you don't know marriage counseling, what's going to happen is this is something that I've seen is there's going to be a lot of leaders who haven't done marriage counseling courses, and they'll just think that certain things are obvious. How come you don't know this, husband? How come you don't know this as a husband or a wife? And the answer is there is a way that you're able to counsel couples in a way that is very beneficial, more than just pray about it. Hey, why aren't you doing this? There is far better ways that society has figured out about the human psyche, about human psychology, that allows us to deal with people in the best way possible, right? So the thing I'm saying is there's so many things that we could, if we had those things installed and in place, all leaders would be at a better position than they are right now, right? So we are dealing with the systems we have in place. And the realization I had was, number one is we are sending our leaders off too early. So most of the times you're going to see your head leaders stop head leading. Well, the smaller the country it is, the earlier they'll probably leave, right? Or like retire from head leading. But we are sending them off too early. So if you come to a country, in most countries, you're gonna be able to find an average retiring age. Just look at the age where the average leader steps down and they're no longer head leading. And what's going to happen is the smaller countries are going to see, or like I would say like the big countries, like look at Korea, even 50-year-olds are still being put up as head leaders. So the larger the organization grows, the longer someone is able to head lead. The smaller it gets, the earlier you retire. So even when I look at like countries that are in their 500s, like under 1,000, and they haven't hit, they probably, probably anywhere from maybe 400 to 1,000, something along that line, you're probably going to have your head leaders retiring, or your big leaders retiring in their 40s, early 40s, most likely. And that's going to be the average. And when you see something like this, you're going to see that we are retiring our leaders too early. Because if 50s is where everything comes together and you're able to make the best decisions and do things in the best way, then you'd want your leaders to get into their 50s so that they can reach the peak of their leadership. You know what I mean? But what happens is, my realization was if you retire these people off too early, then you've only seen the immature leadership of people. And what's going to happen is we're going to base our image or our thoughts of some leader by their years as immature leaders. Right? Not saying that they're immature, like they're immature like mentally or something along that line. This is more about in leadership. If we are gaining experience and if we're gaining wisdom every single year, and it looks like the peak of our decision making and our maturity and our leadership is in our 50s, if we let go of people in their early 40s, then we're missing the greatest years of leadership in leaders. That's what we're missing. And what's going to happen is people retire in their 40s, and then you have people that are young coming in, and they too are in the immaturity of their leadership. And I thought to myself is, well, if we're retiring them too early, another thing that we might have to think about is maybe we're putting them in leadership too young. Like major roles. Maybe it's better to wait till they're 30. If we can only handle, let's pretend that the country we're in only allows leaders to lead for, let's say, on average 15 years. Then it's far better to put that person in leadership from 35 to 50 or 40 to 55 rather than 20 to 35, 25 to 40. Because you're going to be missing out on the best years of leadership that someone has. And take it, I understand that when countries are really young, the leadership comes in much earlier too because there's not enough people. There's not enough people to choose from. So what happens here is, what I think that might be something that's very, very difficult is, let's say someone becomes a leader at 25, okay? 25, 27, 28, around that time. It means that, number one is we don't have a seminary. Number two is we don't have a training program. So these people are learning on the fly. So what's going to happen? They're going to make a ton of mistakes. They're going to be immature in leadership. And, if you're in your late 20s, you're not going to be fully matured either anyways, right? So what's going to happen is they're going to be making all these mistakes. But when they hit 40, they're going to realize, I shouldn't have done that. Oh, I would do things differently. I would do things differently here. But since we have this image of that leader, of how they led in their late 20s and into their 30s, we may never want them to become a leader again when they are just hitting their stride in leadership. And that's what I was thinking to myself. It's like, maybe it's better to put leaders in I'm not talking about not making them leaders at all. I'm talking about head leaders and these big positions, but not giving them to people until they've reached a certain age so that we can kind of tap into those peak years of leadership. You know what I mean? And that was one of the things I was thinking about. I was like, yeah, we all have different skills. We all have different things that we're good at. We all have different positions that we're good at too. But a lot of times it feels like because we've put people into really, really high leadership positions too early, we retire them too early. We don't get to see the peak of their leadership years. And we base their reputation on the years of immature leadership. You know what I mean? So in my head, I was like, maybe it's a better idea to always have them underneath another leader for like 10 years. Start at 25, let them go until 35, always assistant, always underneath, learning and learning and learning. So that by the time that they reach, 30, their mid-30s, they'll be ready to go as a more refined leader, learning from their leaders who have now reached their 50s, seeing how someone in their peak leadership actually leads. Do you know what I mean? Because, like I said before, I got tons of regrets as a leader. As a missionary, tons of mistakes. Things that I look at now and I say, wow, I can't believe I did that. I shouldn't have done it like that. And it's only when I hit my 40s, I look back, reflect, and I'm like, wow, there's no way I should have done this. There's no way I should have done. Oh, if I were to do it again, I'd do it differently. Oh, I'd totally do it differently here. And I think one of the things that we can't do is be desperate about leadership. What does that mean? Being desperate about leadership is, oh, we need more leaders. Okay. Oh, this person wants to be a leader. Oh, they're 24. Okay, put them in a leadership position right now. It's like too desperate. But we need to raise them, lead them up. And I would say we'd have to do it in a very wise and smart way. Like, an example of a wise way to do it is, hey, all right, so we have our current group of leaders, and it's not going to be ideal because our system's not ideal yet, and that's fine. That's okay. But we do want to raise this next generation, but we don't want to raise them too quickly. So what do we need to do? We need to kind of set a plan for the next 3, 4, 5 years where we can raise these people properly, and that when the time comes, they will really be ready to lead. So then if we have like a 3 to 5 year plan put in place, how to train and how to lead these people, then we will know that the current leadership, let's give them the next 3 to 5 years so that we can raise the next generation, that they can help raise the next generation, and that we can do that much better, right? And I would say that this would probably only work for countries that are in the hundreds of hundreds. 4, 5, 6, 700 people. Like, it'd probably only work there because the smaller countries don't have as many choices, and smaller countries are a much different situation than medium-sized compared to over 1,000, right? So I was looking at that like, oh, that's something that we may have to consider is if we realize that the average leadership span is like 15 years, maybe we shouldn't start it too early. And maybe we should be taking advantage of the leadership maturity peaks, which are going to be in their 50s. Then maybe it's better to start them at 35. Maybe it's better to start them at 40 or something along that line where we can see that they can really, really be raised properly for that. So that is something that I was thinking about. And it's something that I do think we have to think about this for the future. The future is something that a lot of people are not prepared for. One of the biggest conversations I have with people is it's talking to full-timers who have now kind of retired out, and now they're trying to figure out what to do for a career in their late 30s, early 40s. And it's a really, really stressful time. And that's something that I do think we can work on. There's a lot of things we need to work on, but that's one of the realizations I had while talking to someone about leadership and such. And that's something I think we can think about for the future also. All right? Either way, that kind of is some of the things I've been thinking about. I hope you guys really makes you kind of give you more thoughts to think about. Remember, guys, I'm going to go over a script for the Summers in the Sky today, so it's going to be a script instead. And yeah, we have Q&A Thursday. We have two big questions. So before we get into that, let's get into the first music break of the day. So let's get into today's Q&A Thursday. There are two questions today, and I hope you guys enjoy this. Remember, guys, keep sending in your questions. Would love to hear what's going on, the practical things that you're going through, questions that other newcomers may give you too. This is something that I hope that you guys are enjoying, okay? So first question is, Hi, Pastor Sky. What would you say coming from a small church perspective when people ask you what church are you from? Usually people get curious after I do some water testing about the new word in the former faith churches. People seem to be very wary of different doctrines and denominations instead of just listening to what I have to say first. When they find out that the way we interpret the word is very different, they tend to come back to the question, where do I get my doctrine? And also, what denomination am I in? When I was a newcomer from the former faith, I didn't bother asking my evangelist denomination or confession. I just fell in love with the word and was so keen to listen to the 30 lessons. What are your thoughts on this? How can I navigate around this particular situation and discern as well which fish I should catch for the Lord? Now, I think part of it is you are already answering some of your questions too, because if you look at the difference between the people you're meeting and look at yourself, there's people like you who just listen to the word and say, this is awesome. I want to keep listening to this. And then there's those that are very wary and very conscious, like, oh my gosh, this is new. This must be a cult, or what church are you from? What is this? What is that? I understand that, right? So I would say that the only time people will get really weirded out is if you're weird, which means that how you answer makes important. It's very, very important. Like, for instance, whenever people ask me what denomination, I say non-denominational. Just like, yeah, non-denominational. And they'll be like, oh, okay. Oh, where'd you get your doctrine? The doctrine's from our church, from our pastor. right? So our pastor, originated this church, and this is where the doctrine comes from. Oh, okay. Like it's pretty much you could even say stuff like, this is true. Oh, my pastor my pastor went to a Methodist seminary. Went to a Methodist seminary. Sunseem graduated. He got an honorary degree from the Wesleyan Seminary, which is a Methodist seminary, right? So if you just practice that, they're not going to ask questions after that. They'll be like, oh, hey, what denomination are you? Oh, we're Methodist. Oh, what denomination are you? Non-denominational. Oh, okay, cool, right? And then they'll be like, oh, where's your church? Oh, our church is over here. Very, very small church. And where'd you get your doctrine from? Well, doctrine is from our pastor, the one who founded our church, and he went to John Wesley Seminary, which is Methodist seminary. And you just want to have those ready to go. If those are the questions people are asking, just be ready with those questions, right? And yeah, some people are, or I would say more people are wary of different doctrines and denominations, right? And some people are going to be asking those questions first, and that's true. And some people, you'll talk to them. When you tell them about certain doctrines, they're going to be even more curious. So what I would say to you is this. Your approach becomes the most important thing. You don't want to approach with super high-level doctrines. You don't want to talk about resurrection. You don't want to talk about predestination. You don't want to talk about these super controversial things. I would start out with some things that are a little bit safer, and that even if there's an outcome or the result of what we're teaching, the small thing that you teach is not going to be affecting, like, wait, Jesus resurrected spiritually. What are you saying? Oh, you heretic. I wouldn't go to anything big. I would go to things that are a little bit smaller, a little bit on the side, right? And that's what I'm going to do when I go into the script today. I will show you which one I get into first. That's the one I'm going to show you that in my scripts today. But yeah, I wouldn't go too deep into doctrine. I wouldn't be trying to give them something too deep. I would people are not ready for that right away. So I would do things that are kind of curious things like, hey, have you ever thought about this? Oh, no, I haven't thought about this. Huh, what do you think the answer is? Oh, well, I think it's this. What do you think about this? And then you're able to give an answer from that point on. So I would also look into what are the types of things you're talking about when you say that you're sharing the different doctrines. What are you actually sharing? And is it a bit too much? Is it too much that that could be a reason why people are getting skeptical or people are getting really weary? Like, whoa, this guy's touching a matter that is too big. It is something that is already settled in Christianity. So there's, then they're going to be like, this is weird, right? So I would go into something that's a little bit easier, not too heavy on the palate, and something that is a little bit lighter so they're not going to freak out or going to be like, whoa, this is something that that's too weird for me kind of thing. So that would be something that I would suggest also is I would probably want to know, what are you sharing? Because what you share makes a difference too, and sometimes what you share is a little bit too much. The way Sunstein put it is, when you evangelize, it's like steaming potatoes. How do you know if it's ready? You don't grab the potato and just rip and tear into it. You take a fork and you poke it, which means you're not going to hit anything too big. You poke it with a fork and you just see if it slides in or not, which means you're just going to give these small, not very aggressive doctrinal differences. And that's going to be something that I would want to figure out first, to know whether maybe it's your approach is too strong or aggressive. I don't know, but I would like to know what you actually say to these people, because it could be too strong, right? And like I said before, if people are always asking, what's your doctrine, what's your denomination, have that prepared and ready. We're pretty much in America, we're non-denominational. Other countries, we could be Methodist, right? Where do we get it from? Our founder of our church, right? Founder of our church. This is where the doctrine comes from. He went to a Methodist seminary. He got he graduated from Methodist seminary, and that should be enough. right? So I would say that those are the two things that I would give advice for here. Number one, be prepared for those two questions you keep getting and be comfortable, be normal with it. And the second thing is, I would look back and look at your approach to see how aggressive you're going, or how strong the doctrine you're actually telling these people about. Because the stronger it is, the more they're going to be defensive, because you're asking them to defend their actual faith itself. So for me, I go to very light and easy things. So that would be my take on how to navigate around this particular situation. And each country is different too. Every country is different, and the way they react is going to be different also. So, to some countries, something may not be as aggressive as something in another country, right? Or you may have been someone that received the word so easily, and you love the word so much that all these doctrines sound great to you, but for the regular person and an average person from Christianity, it's going to be something that's kind of freaky for them. So those are a couple things that I would think about as your next thing, okay? Now, second question is about the rapture. So I had a great conversation with this member, and this member was someone I helped to evangelize here in Malaysia, and they were just so excited because they did this 3-day Bible camp. It was like 10, 12 hours a day of learning the 30 lessons from beginning all the way to the end in 3 days. And I was like, whoa, this is so crazy. And they're so excited, so happy. And they have this wealth of knowledge in their head. And they come to me and say, hey, Pastor Sky, hey, do you know when Sunseam raptured? And, it's one of these questions where we've learned it, but it's just so long ago. We don't really remember. It's like, oh. And I was like, was it 3 days before? And then eventually, no, it was 3 years before in 2012, July. Sunseam said he raptured at that time. And it's very interesting because the questions that came up, this is actually, when I heard this, these questions popped up in my mind. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's something that probably Sunseam talked about. We just didn't know. We just didn't, we just don't remember it because it's not something we're taught all the time, right? And I thought to myself, is like, these are two good questions that I could think about for Q&A. Is number one is, why 2012? And number two is, why July 2012? And the second one is, why did he have to rapture that early? It could have been 3 days earlier. It could have been 1 week earlier. Why'd it have to be 3 years earlier? Okay, so let's first go into, all right, so Sunseam raptured first in July of 2012. And, so why July 2012? Well, there's several major things that happened in 2012, right? If you look at the very big picture, at the end of 2012, it was the official ending of the New Testament and the beginning of the complete Testament time. So there is a massive threshold that we crossed, right? So it was a big year, the final ending of the New Testament time. Now, what else happened that year, especially in July? Well, in July, there were several things that Sunseam realized. And you guys got to remember this. 2012 is the ending of the third grave period. So if you remember, 2009, was it? No, it's the ending of the first. No. Yes, 2009. 2009 is the first grave. No. Sorry, what am I saying? The first grave period. Okay. So the what happened in 2009 to 2012? That was basically Sunseam taking the cross from 2009 to 2012. That's when he first went to prison. Those first 3 years was him bearing the cross, and he went through a lot of suffering during those first 3 years. And what happened at the end of 2012? Well, it's similar to Jesus had his 3 years, and then at the end of the 3 years, Jesus died on the cross, and then he resurrected. 2012 was the time of the resurrection, okay? So we have to understand that this is a very, very big point. So remember, before that, we do have the grave period that started in 1999 to 2002, right? So 1999, 2002 was the first grave period. Second grave period was 2002 to 2005, right? or 2002 and a half to 2006, and then 2006 to 2009 and a half, 2009 and a half to the end of 2012, and then the 2012 to 2015, right? And that was the rapture time. So we had the four grave periods, and 2009 to 2012 was the end of the third one. And it was also not only was it the third one, it was also the one where Sunsim went to the cross and he paid the 3 years there. Okay? So what we see now here is like, oh, okay, so he's a bunch of major things have happened in this year, and it's very, very significant, right? And the other thing we have to realize is 2012 is the year when Sunsim realized complete testament word. What does that mean? Well, remember, the 30 lessons that we're learning right now, Sunsim has told us from the past, those were all taught at the time of Jesus, right? They were all taught at the time of Jesus, so that's all New Testament word. But because he died so early, these words, they died with the apostles, and it went back to the old thinking of what Judaism was thinking about these prophecies. So if 30 lessons is New Testament word, then what's complete testament word? But that's what he realized in 2012 when it came to July. And what was that? It was about the Holy Son. It was about the soul entity, and it was about rapture, right? And because he realized about these things, what does that mean? That kind of leads to the next thing. So Sunsim realizes the new words of the complete testament time that came out at this time, and then the New Testament ends and the complete testament begins in 2013, right? So that brings us to the next question. So the first question answered is, why did he rapture in 2012 July? And we see all the significant points, right? And especially he realized the words of the complete testament time. Holy Son, rapture, soul entity, right? And there's something else. Maybe I think it was like purpose of creation was realized even more deeply at that time also. But since he realized the complete testament word, he also raptures to the divine level, okay? Now, what happens next? Well, this enables us to understand what happens, why Sunsim had to rapture that early. So remember, this is the end of the third grave period. Remember, first grave period is 1999 to 2002 and a half. And then 2002 and a half to 2006 is the second grave period, right? And then 2009 to 2012 is where Sunsim pays, he pays the price. He takes the cross, right? And then 2012 to 2015 is what? Well, it's the preparation for the rapture. It's the preparation for, 3:16. Now, here's the thing. A verse that comes to mind is John chapter 14, verse 6. And John 14, verse 6 says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And when Sunsim explains about I am the way, it means that Jesus took the path first, and he knows the way, and that's why he's able to show you the way. And examples that Sunsim gave is, think about going on a trip, like going to a mountain you've never been before. If someone says, hey, let me show you the way, what does that mean? How did he learn the way? It means he went on the path before, and that's why he knows the way. So what does that mean? It means that if you understand what Jesus says, I am the way, it means that he went through the path first of becoming a son of God, and this is how he can teach you. So from 2012 to 2015, how can Sunsim prepare us and show us the way to rapture? Well, the only way he can show us the way is if he did it himself first. Which means that Sunsim has to do it that early so that he can prepare us so that we can be ready for the rapture too. But if he doesn't rapture first and doesn't know how to get there first, then how can he show us how to do it? And that's why during those times, we're doing 1 a.m. prayers. During those times, we're evangelizing, we're raising our rapture level, learning what rapture actually is, 100 level, 300 level, 700 level, 1,000 level. And that can only be done when he goes through it first. Right? So I would say that, those are the two things that came to my mind. And I thought those would be something very, very interesting to share too. Right? Remember, there's 4 grave periods. The first two, is we were the ones that had to overcome. And then since we couldn't, Sunstream had to pay the price from 2009 to 2012. And then we all had to start preparing for the rapture at that time also. So yeah, I thought that would be something very interesting and cool to listen to. And I hope it's something that you guys will gain something from also. All right. If you have any other questions about this, things that you've learned, things that you can share, I would love to hear it. We can go into the next, we can go more deeper into it too about, why did this happen? Why was it like this? And I think it's something that we can all learn deeply from also. All right. Well, there it is, guys. That is today's Q&A Thursday. Hope you guys really, really enjoyed that. Remember, keep sending in your questions if you have any more things that you want to talk about, which means we only have scripts left. I'm going to go over a script that you can use for second-generation Christians, and I hope it's something that you guys can learn a lot from too. Okay, so there it is. Before we get into the script segment, let's get into the last music break of the day.
Take you where you wanna go. You gotta really show him that you want it though. He can show you where you wanna be. You gotta put in words that'll be unseen. Look, and it's just like that. Take it to the golden city just with a snap. You don't even got a trip, no, we got your back. All you gotta do is sit back and relax. There's this love between you and I that is so strong. I don't wanna ever lose it, then I'll be alone. But if I leave his arms a wonder, I'll be sitting all alone just to ponder. Make up your mind and act as you should. I'ma show you we can be the greatest dude I ever stood. Living with the Lord every day is like my paradise. If you leave your worries and concerns to him, you'll be alright.
Really wanna live with happiness and hope. You gotta live with the one you love the most. And don't forget that even on darkest roads, just find the Lord and grab your heart. Control your deeds. A pretty paradise right from the start.
Paradise.
All the night brings darkness. You're like the sun, yeah, you always shine so bright. And I can't wait to see you, cause you are my only paradise. Together we're the greatest. Just like the moon and the stars, we light the night. And I can't wait to see you, cause you are my only paradise.
The weather's fine, the temperature's cool. 7 on earth, cause I'm with you. Ain't nothing better when we live forever. When we make us to be one true love. Birds of a feather flock together. And it's just like that. Give you my love, cause I don't hold back. Call me your love, cause I know you got stacks. This love is real, cause we got it like that. Sandy walks on the beach, summertime. Feel the heat, that's a love paradise. Holding hands, cool breeze, cloud 9. Make heaven together with you and I. Sandy walks on the beach, summertime. Feel the heat, that's a love paradise. Holding hands, cool breeze, cloud 9. Make heaven together with you and I.
Really wanna live with happiness and hope. You gotta live with the one you love the most. And don't forget that even on darkest roads, just find the Lord and grab your heart. Control your deeds. A pretty paradise right from the start.
Paradise.
All the night brings darkness. You're like the sun, yeah, you always shine so bright. And I can't wait to see you, cause you are my only paradise. Together we're the greatest. Just like the moon and the stars, we light the night. And I can't wait to see you, cause you are my only paradise.
He can take you where you wanna go. 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 He can show you what you wanna know. He can show you what you wanna know. I have realized I'm not alone, because living with you is like my paradise.
All the night brings darkness. You're like the sun, yeah, you always shine so bright. And I can't wait to see you, cause you are my only paradise. Together we're the greatest. Just like the moon and the stars, we light the night. And I can't wait to see you, cause you are my only paradise. All the night brings darkness. You're like the sun, yeah, you always shine so bright. And I can't wait to see you, cause you are my only paradise. Together we're the greatest. Just like the moon and the stars, we light the night. And I can't wait to see you, cause you are my only paradise.
Okay, so let's get into today's first script. All right? And this is going to be for second generation Christians. These are the people that you want to find that are not going to be too fixed on their perspective of what they know and what they learned about the Bible, right? So this is why you want to kind of challenge them in a small area and not be too aggressive and go straight into something really, really deep like predestination or resurrection or even Noah's flood, right? I would say we would go into something like a minor side story from the 30 lessons. And it's something that will pique their interest and help them to it'll help you to assess whether they're ready or not. When you see their reaction to it, you can see whether they're like, oh yeah, I want to learn something like this. Or they're going to be like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's not something that I really want to learn kind of thing, right? So, this script is one of the ones that this is the one that I used when I was in Malaysia in 2014, and this is what all of us practiced and we knew, and this was the approach that wasn't too aggressive, and it wasn't a core doctrine, right? So first, what I did was, so let's start the script. Well, first we'd give them a survey, and it would be a lifestyle survey, and we'd find out about religion, their relationships, what they do with their time, screen time that they have. Like all these are different things. We're talking to them as a regular lifestyle survey. Like, of course, we tell them we're from a Christian club here and there, right? Now, the second thing we talk to them, like the first, if I find out that there's someone I think that is a possible good second generation candidate, Christian, I present them a problem from the Bible. I say in Genesis chapter 4, verse 16, I find, have you guys, have you ever read this verse, Genesis 4:16? It's really interesting because, Cain kills Abel, and then God kicks Cain out. And where does Cain go? In Genesis 4:16, it says that Cain goes to another town and finds a wife there. Now, why is this weird? Because just the fact that there's another town with an actual name, meaning someone had to name this town, there's other people besides Adam and Eve. Where did this woman come from? If Adam and Eve are 1 and 2, and Cain and Abel are the 3rd and 4th human beings on earth, and then Cain kills Abel, so now there's only 3 on earth, and then Cain gets kicked out, where would you find your wife? Why would there be another town with someone who already named it? So this begs the question is Adam and Eve the first? What do you think? So I present them with a question and it makes them think, and you're going to see whether they're going to be like, yeah, of course, they're the first. They have to be the first because the Bible said so kind of thing, right? So then the question is, if they're the first, how can there be more people? And this is where you kind of get an idea, where you get to discern a little bit more. So what I'll do next is I will agree with them because they're most likely going to say they are the first, right? So I'll be like, yeah, the answer is true. Adam and Eve are the first. And they're not at the same time. And then I laugh together with them, right? And then the big question comes is, how is it possible that they can be the first and not the first at the same time? So I'm not denying, I'm agreeing with them, they are the first. So we're on the same page and we have something that we both agree on. But I also put in something strange like, oh yeah, and they're also not at the same time. So let's get into so now I get into the evidence. So I'm like, hey, you know the story of Adam and Eve. What did they do wrong? They ate the fruit. What was the punishment? Genesis 2:17 says that they died. They died. The punishment is death itself. So the question we want to figure out is, if God's punishment is death, what does he mean when he says die? And then they're going to probably answer, well, yeah, they died, so they are supposed to live forever, right? So I present Hebrews 9:27 is, the Bible clearly says that we're all going to die anyway. It's a guarantee that we will die, right? Man is destined to die once and then face judgment. So the verse I want to bring up to this person is Revelation chapter 20, verse 14. And it talks about the lake of fire. The lake of fire is the second death. And then I will point out and I'll question, wait, did it just say second death? Which means the Bible has more than one death. Which means we can't look at death just as, oh, it only means this, because there's 2 different types of death. The interesting thing is, the lake of fire, which is hell, is the second death. So what do you think? What is a second death? What is a second death that leads to hell? And then, you can show them a verse like, we already looked at Hebrews 9:27 that says, man is destined to die once, or Ecclesiastes 12:7, the dust goes back to the ground it came from, the spirit goes back to God. Like there's different verses that you can show that shows that there's a body and then there's a spirit, right? So then my question is, what is the second death? What is the death that leads to hell? Is it the physical death or the spiritual death? And obviously it's a spiritual death. And I would tell them straight out, I was like, which one do you think is more important to God? The physical body that's temporary or the spirit that lasts forever? And the answer is it's the spirit, which means that it is the spiritual death that leads to hell. What is spiritual death? Well, if I were to put God's, if I were to put heaven or spiritual life and death into a nutshell, it's basically, are you connected to God or not? Spiritual death is when you disconnect with God. Adam and Eve were with God, but when they sinned and ate the fruit, they disconnected with God, and this was the death that God was talking about. Now, the big question is, how does disconnect of a relationship actually equal death? And I'll give you some examples. Well, let me tell you that in life, relationship is the difference between life and death in this world. How so? If you're walking down the street, some stranger bumps you hard, but doesn't say sorry, and they walk past, what are you going to do? You're going to be like, oh, idiot, and you move forward. But what happens if it's someone you really love and know, and they hit you and say nothing? You're going to be hurt. There's a difference between someone with a relationship and without. What if a stranger walks by you without saying anything to you? They don't say hi. Do you care? You don't. But if your lover walks by, sees you, and doesn't say a word and doesn't say hi, how does that feel? There's a difference between someone who has a relationship and someone who doesn't. It's like going to a stadium and you're going to meet your friend there. There's thousands of people there. But who's the only person you notice? It's the person you have a relationship with. That's the power of relationship. It determines whether someone is alive or dead in your life. All the strangers in the world are dead to you. Why? Because there's no relationship. That's how big a relationship is, especially as people who value love as the most important thing. The most important thing about the human being is not the physical life and the physical death, but it is about the spiritual life. Are you connected with God or not? So think about this. If we just learned about two different types of death, when God says, and we know that the most important death to God is spiritual. Why? Because it leads to heaven or hell. Then what do you think God means when he says, hey, guess what? If you eat this fruit, you will surely die. Was it the physical or the spiritual? It's the spiritual. It's the disconnect between them and God that leads to hell. So here's something that we take to the next level. And I'll tell them, well, think about this then. If there's two types of death, the physical death and the spiritual death, we also realize there's two types of life. The physical life is someone who is born physically into this world. And the spiritual life, well, spiritual death is the disconnect, which means spiritual life is the connect. Which means, which is more important? The first person that was ever made on this earth, the first physical life? Or is it the first person to connect to God? What's more important? When you look at Adam and Eve, are they the first? Absolutely. They are the first to connect with God. But are they the first? No. It doesn't matter if they're the first that were physically born or not. What matters is, are they the first spiritually born, the first to spiritually connect with God? And we see that this is how you can have other people in the world, and Adam and Eve is not the first, but they are the first, right? So, I haven't done this in a long time, so I might not have done it as powerfully as I normally do. I'm going to have to practice a little bit more. But you kind of get an idea of that's the script that I have. That's the script that I use that when I give them present them with a minor problem that's not going to shake their faith or anything else along that line, and from that and from their reaction, I get to discern whether they're good or not. Well, someone I want to continue with or someone I don't want to continue with. And guess what? You're going to find a lot of people that you won't even get to that point where you can share this script with them. You first got to find the right people you can share with them first, and then after that, you'll be able to connect them to the Bible study. And if they're really interested, you have a sign-up form too that we have the greatest Bible study ever kind of thing. And then we have it, every this day, it's on Zoom, yada, 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 whatever it is. This is something that I think that will be very, very good. And at least there's a script that if everyone starts practicing this every single day, what's going to happen? They practice it, it becomes something very, very normal. I would not suggest you prepare a PowerPoint and then bring out a computer or even the small screen on your phone. I don't think that's something that people will really look at. People are more into you're basically selling yourself, right? And that's something else that people have to learn how to do really well too. Be funny, be interesting or whatever it is. But that's something completely different. But that's one of the scripts that I would use, and it allows me to see if this person is someone who's open-minded, or someone says, "Oh, that's interesting. Oh, wow, I would want to do something like this. I want to do a Bible study like this." And that's one of the scripts that I will use. Right? That's not the script for Gentiles, but it is a script for second generation. So this is something that you guys can use yourself. Tell me in the comments if this is something helpful or not. I know that you're not going to just listen to it once and all of a sudden you're going to be like, "Oh, wow, this is the greatest thing. Oh, I could do it right away." No, it's something you need to practice a lot first before you actually get into it. Okay? So there it is, guys. That is the first script that I'm sharing with you at this time. Hope it's something that you guys really, really enjoy. And if anything, these scripts are kind of things that are from the Bible study, but they're kind of side studies. Or I'll use scripts that are introductions to certain Bible studies, like 3 divisions or something along that line. All right? Well, there it is. That is today's script. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, comments, anything that you want to add or whatever, go ahead and leave in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. All right? There it is. That is today's Thursday podcast. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. Had an amazing and awesome time just like I did. Enjoy it, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, I'm on the Morning Star Drive, I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm